Echoes of abandonment. The Antarctic ice groaned beneath the massive excavation platform as Dr. Eliza Chen stared into the abyss they had uncovered. For 3 months, the international research team had been drilling through the ancient ice after their ground-penetrating radar detected an anomalous structure buried 2 kilometers below the surface. Now, as the reinforced elevator descended into the darkness, Eliza's heart pounded against her ribs. This discovery could change everything. Final descent initiated, announced the AI through her neural implant. Estimated arrival: 2 minutes. The year was 2187, and Earth was finally healing. The great collapse of the 2080s had nearly destroyed human civilization. Coastal cities drowned by rising seas, agricultural belts transformed into barren wastelands, billions displaced by unstoppable superstorms. Humanity had been forced to adapt or perish. The following century had seen technological advancement born of desperation. Atmospheric scrubbers that reversed carbon accumulation, genetically modified phytoplankton that restored ocean chemistry, and neural interfaces that connected human minds directly to planetary environmental systems. Eliza adjusted her exosuit's temperature regulator as the elevator continued its descent. Above her, the research base sprawled across the Antarctic plateau, the last pristine continent, now host to humanity's largest scientific outpost. "You look nervous," said Commander Jackson, the military attaché assigned to her team. His dark features were barely visible in the dim blue light of the elevator. "Wouldn't you be?" Eliza replied, her breath fogging slightly in the cold air despite the environmental controls. "Whatever's down there has been buried for at least 50,000 years, possibly much longer." The discovery had begun with a routine geological survey, part of the planet-wide monitoring system established after the collapse. The anomaly had appeared on scans as a perfect geometric structure, an impossible hexagonal array extending for nearly a kilometer beneath the ice. Initial core samples had revealed traces of unknown metals and crystalline composites that defied analysis. The elevator slowed, then stopped with a gentle bump. The doors slid open to reveal an enormous cavern, perfectly carved from the ice and rock. Powerful lights mounted on autonomous drones illuminated a sight that made Eliza freeze in place. "My God," whispered Jackson beside her. Before them stood a titanic archway, composed of a dark metal that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Intricate patterns covered its surface. Not random designs, but clearly a form of written language. At the base of the arch, a control panel pulsed with soft blue light, despite having been buried for millennia. "It's active," Eliza breathed, stepping forward. "All this time, and it's still active." The international team spread throughout the cavern, setting up equipment with practiced efficiency. Dr. Yoshida, the quantum physicist, immediately began scanning the structure with specialized equipment. Dr. Mbiki, the linguist, approached the inscriptions with reverent caution. "The energy readings are off the charts," Yoshida reported, his voice tight with excitement. "This technology, it's beyond anything we've ever developed." Eliza approached the control panel, her trained eyes studying the symbols. After 20 years as Earth's leading archaeologist, she had developed theories about potential alien contacts in humanity's distant past. But nothing had prepared her for this. Direct, irrefutable evidence. "Dr. Chen," called Mbiki, her voice strained. "These inscriptions, they contain mathematical sequences, universal constants. I think it's a primer, a way to understand their language." Over the next 72 hours, the team worked without rest. Neural stimulators kept them alert as they documented, analyzed, and gradually began to decipher the alien technology. The scientific community above watched via secure feeds, governments held emergency sessions, and humanity collectively held its breath. On the 4th day, Eliza made the breakthrough. "It's a monitoring station," she announced to the assembled team. "Part of a network. And according to these logs, it's been transmitting data for approximately 300,000 years." "Transmitting to whom?" asked Jackson, voicing the question everyone feared to ask. Eliza's hands moved across the alien interface, which responded to her touch as if designed for human use. To them, the builders. And if I'm interpreting this correctly, they're coming back. The revelation sent shockwaves through the global community. Earth's united government, the Planetary Council, convened an emergency session. Dr. Chen was summoned to New Geneva to present her findings. Standing before the assembled representatives of humanity, Eliza struggled to convey the magnitude of what they had discovered. The evidence suggests that Earth was seeded with specific genetic material by an advanced species approximately 300,000 years ago, she explained, her voice echoing through the council chamber. They established monitoring stations across the planet to track our development. The Antarctic facility appears to be the main control hub. Are you suggesting, asked Councillor Zhao of the Asian Alliance, that humanity itself is the result of alien intervention? The data is inconclusive on that specific point, Eliza replied carefully. But what is clear is that Earth has been an experimental site. The beings who built these stations, whom I designated the Vexari based on recurring symbols in their language, were conducting some form of long-term study. And now they're returning, stated Admiral Wei, Supreme Commander of Earth's Defense Forces. It wasn't a question. Yes, the station activated a beacon when we discovered it. Based on the data streams I've been able to decode, they're already on their way. Humanity had barely a month to prepare. The Planetary Council declared a global state of alert. Earth's orbital defense platforms, constructed after the collapse to redirect asteroid threats, were repurposed as potential weapons. The limited interplanetary fleet, designed for solar system colonization efforts, was recalled and retrofitted. Dr. Chen led a global team working feverishly to understand the alien technology. They made remarkable progress, partly because the systems seemed intuitive to human cognition, almost as if they had been designed with human users in mind. It's like finding an instruction manual written in a language you've never seen, but somehow understanding it anyway, Eliza explained to Admiral Wei during a briefing. There's something deeply familiar about their technological approach. Familiar enough to give us an advantage? The Admiral asked, his weathered face grave. Eliza hesitated. Perhaps. We've managed to activate several dormant systems within the monitoring network. There are defense protocols that might be adapted to our use. What she didn't mention was her growing suspicion about the true nature of the Vexari project. The more she studied their records, the more she suspected that Earth wasn't just an experimental site. It was something far more significant. Exactly 34 days after the discovery, they arrived. The Vexari ships emerged from what appeared to be artificially generated wormholes at the edge of the solar system. 7 massive vessels that dwarfed humanity's largest space stations. Their design was both organic and mechanical, with sweeping curves that defied conventional engineering principles. Earth watched through its deep space monitoring network as the vessels approached with deliberate slowness. No communications were attempted. The Planetary Council authorized defensive postures but issued strict orders, no preemptive actions. The Vexari fleet took up position in high Earth orbit, their ships arranging themselves in a perfect heptagon pattern. Finally, a transmission was received, a tight-beam quantum communication directed specifically at the Antarctic facility. Eliza was there, back at the site of the discovery, when the message arrived. The alien control panel activated autonomously, projecting a 3-dimensional image above its surface. The being that appeared was vaguely humanoid but clearly alien. Tall and thin with iridescent skin that shifted colors like an octopus. Its eyes were large, multifaceted orbs that seemed to look in all directions at once. When it spoke, the words were transmitted directly into the minds of everyone present, bypassing language barriers through some form of advanced neural interface. We are the Vexari, the being stated without preamble. We have returned to reclaim our property. This world and all its resources belong to us by right of creation. Admiral Wei, present via holographic projection, stepped forward. This world belongs to humanity. We evolved here, built civilizations here, and have defended it from natural catastrophes. We acknowledge your prior presence, but reject any claim of ownership." The Vexari representative's skin rippled with colors that suggested amusement, or perhaps contempt. "Your species exists because we designed it to exist. Your civilizations arose because we permitted them to arise. Even your catastrophes were tests of our design parameters." Eliza stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "You claim to have created humanity. For what purpose?" "Creation requires no purpose beyond itself," the alien replied. "You were an experiment in directed evolution. Now that experiment has reached its conclusion." "What does that mean?" demanded Y. "It means that this world will be reclaimed, its resources harvested. Useful specimens of your species will be preserved. You have 48 of your hours to surrender control of your planetary systems." The projection vanished, leaving the humans in stunned silence. Within minutes, the Planetary Council was in emergency session, with military leaders advocating immediate strikes, while diplomatic corps urged caution and communication. Dr. Chen, however, had returned to the alien control systems. Something about the Vexari's statements didn't align with the data she had uncovered. If humans were merely an experiment to be concluded, why design the monitoring systems to be intuitively usable by human minds? Why encode information in ways that humans could eventually decipher? As Earth's military forces mobilized and civilians were moved to underground shelters, Eliza made her most significant discovery yet. Deep within the Antarctic facility's memory banks, she found security protocols that had been deliberately hidden, not from humans, but from the Vexari themselves. "They've been lying," she told Admiral Wee during an emergency briefing. "Earth wasn't just an experiment. It was an insurance policy." "Explain," demanded the Admiral. "Based on what I've decoded, there was a schism within Vexari society hundreds of thousands of years ago. One faction, the Preservers, believed their species was becoming stagnant, losing its capacity for innovation and adaptation. They initiated the Earth Project not just to create a new species, but to preserve their own knowledge and potentially create inheritors of their legacy." "Are you suggesting these aliens want us to replace them?" asked Counselor Zhao incredulously. "Not exactly," Eliza replied. "But the Preservers designed humans with specific cognitive adaptations that the Vexari themselves had lost. Creativity, intuitive leaps, the ability to thrive in chaos rather than just order. And they left us tools, technology that was meant to be discovered at exactly the right moment." Admiral Wei's eyes narrowed. "Such as weapons, among other things," Eliza confirmed. "The Antarctic facility isn't just a monitoring station. It's a vault containing Vexari military technology, specifically adapted for human use." As the 48-hour deadline approached, humanity prepared for what might be its final stand. But thanks to Dr. Chen's discoveries, they would not be facing the Vexari empty-handed. The alien weapons systems were being rapidly integrated into Earth's defense networks, and something unexpected was happening. The human-adapted systems were performing beyond even their designers' specifications. The Vexari had created humanity to think differently than they did. Now that difference might be humanity's only hope for survival. As the countdown reached 0, the massive Vexari ships began to move into attack formation. Admiral Wei stood on the command deck of the orbital defense platform Aegis, watching the alien vessels with grim determination. "All systems integrated and operational," reported his tactical officer. "Adaptive shields at maximum capacity." We nodded, then opened a channel to the Vexari flagship. "This is Admiral Marcus Wei of Earth Defense Forces. We reject your ultimatum. This world is ours, not by your design, but by our blood, sweat, and determination. If you want it, you'll have to take it." In the Antarctic facility, Eliza activated the final security protocol as alarms blared announcing the beginning of hostilities. The ancient alien technology hummed to life around her, responding to humanity's moment of greatest need. The Vexari had returned to reclaim their abandoned technology. But Earth was no longer the primitive world they remembered. and humanity was about to demonstrate just how well they had learned from their unwitting teachers. The inheritors stand. The first Vexari attack came without warning, a barrage of energy pulses that streaked toward Earth's major population centers. For a terrible moment, Admiral Wei thought they had miscalculated, that humanity's defenses would prove inadequate against such advanced technology. Then the impossible happened. The adaptive shield network, integrated with the alien technology Dr. Chen had unlocked, didn't just block the attack, it absorbed it. Across the planet, massive energy collectors constructed hastily over the past month drank in the Vexari weapons fire, converting it to usable power. The more the aliens fired, the stronger Earth's defenses became. "They don't understand," murmured Wei's tactical officer in disbelief. "They're literally powering our countermeasures." In the Antarctic Command Center, Eliza watched the battle unfold through the facility's advanced monitoring systems. The Vexari ships moved with perfect coordination, executing maneuvers that should have overwhelmed Earth's defensive capabilities. Yet humanity's hybrid defense network adapted with each exchange, learning patterns, anticipating attacks. "It's working exactly as the preservers intended," she whispered to herself. The hidden faction of Vexari who had seeded Earth hadn't just left behind technology. They had designed humans to improve upon it, to innovate where the Vexari could only replicate. After the initial exchange, the Vexari fleet pulled back, clearly reassessing their strategy. Admiral Wei seized the opportunity. "This is Admiral Wei to all Earth defense platforms. Prepare for counterattack pattern Hydra. Let's show our visitors what humanity has learned." Across Earth orbit, the retrofitted defense platforms came alive, unleashing a coordinated assault unlike anything seen in human history. Advanced missiles carrying phase-shifting warheads split into multiple trajectories, some physical, some holographic. Directed energy weapons pulse with modulating frequencies that probed for weaknesses in the Vexari shields. Most importantly, each weapon system operated semi-autonomously, guided by a collective neural network of human operators. Where the Vexari relied on perfect order and coordination, humanity embraced controlled chaos and innovation. The counterattack caught the alien fleet unprepared. Two of the smaller vessels suffered significant damage before they could adapt their defenses. The remaining ships scattered, breaking their perfect formation, a tactical response that seemed to cause them visible confusion. In the Antarctic facility, a new transmission came through on the alien communication array. This time, the Vexari representative appeared agitated, its skin flashing rapid patterns of color. "You wield preserver technology," it accused. "This is forbidden. You cannot possibly understand the forces you are manipulating." Eliza stepped forward, facing the alien projection. "We understand more than you think, Overseer Kellax. Yes, we know who you are. The records identified you as the leader of the Reclamation faction. We also know about the civil war within your species and why the preservers chose Earth." The alien's colors stabilized into a pattern of deep purple and blue, what Eliza had come to recognize as surprise or concern. Impossible. That knowledge was purged from all records. "Not all," Eliza countered. "The preservers were thorough. They knew the reclamationists would eventually track down their experimental worlds. They prepared us." Above Earth, the battle had reached a stalemate. The Vexari ships had regrouped but were not advancing. Earth's defenses held firm but lacked the power to decisively defeat the alien armada. It was a precarious balance that couldn't last. Admiral Wei, recognizing the critical moment, opened a direct channel to the Vexari flagship. "This is Admiral Wei to Overseer Kellax. We propose a parley. This conflict benefits neither of our species." After a long moment, the response came. "We will meet. One representative. Neutral location." The meeting point was established in lunar orbit, a small space station hastily retrofitted with life support systems compatible with Vexari physiology. Admiral Wei represented Earth, while Overseer Kellax emerged from a sleek shuttle that docked with fluid precision. In person, the Vexari was even more alien than its projection had suggested. Standing nearly 3 meters tall, its body seemed to flow rather than move, supported by a partially visible exoskeleton beneath its iridescent skin. Multiple limbs emerged and retracted as needed, and its eyes constantly shifted, analyzing everything from multiple perspectives simultaneously. "You have surprised us, human," Kelax began without preamble. This was unexpected. "That was the Preserver's intention," Wei replied calmly. "They believed in adaptation, in evolution. Your faction lost that capacity long ago, didn't they? Perfect order, perfect stability, but no growth." Kelax's skin rippled with what might have been indignation. The Preservers were idealists who would have destroyed our civilization with their chaotic experimentation. They were sentenced to exile, their research worlds quarantined and forgotten. Until now, we noted. What changed? Why return after 300,000 years? The alien was silent for a moment, its colors shifting through complex patterns. "Our civilization faces challenges: resource depletion, technological stagnation." The Council remembered the Preserver worlds and their experimental subjects. "We thought to reclaim what was ours, and instead discovered that the students had outgrown the teachers," we suggested. "You have adapted our technology in ways we did not anticipate," Kelax acknowledged reluctantly. This suggests the Preserver's theories had merit. While the parley continued on the lunar station, Dr. Chen made her most significant discovery yet. Deep within the Antarctic facility's archives, she found detailed genetic records of both humans and Vexari. What they revealed was staggering. "Establish communication with Admiral Wei immediately," she ordered the facility's eye. When his holographic projection appeared, she could barely contain her excitement. "Admiral, I found something critical. The Vexari didn't just create humans as an experiment. We're them. Or rather, we're what they once were." Wei's expression remained composed, but his eyes narrowed. "Explain." "The Preservers didn't just seed Earth with genetic material. They used their own ancient genetic template. What the Vexari were before millennia of deliberate genetic modification. They wanted to recreate their species as it existed before they engineered out creativity, intuition, and emotion in favor of perfect logic and order." The implications were profound. Humanity wasn't just an experiment. They were the Vexari's evolutionary past reborn, enhanced and adapted for Earth's conditions, but fundamentally connected to their supposed creators. Wei processed this information quickly, then turned back to Overseer Kelax. "Your Preservers did more than create an experiment. They preserved your species' original form. They gave you a second chance." The revelation clearly disturbed the Vexari Overseer. Its colors shifted rapidly through patterns that the translation systems couldn't interpret. "This complicates matters. The Council must be informed." "It does more than complicate them," Wei pressed. "It fundamentally changes our relationship. We're not your property or your experiment. We're your legacy, the part of yourselves that you lost along the way." Back on Earth, the news spread rapidly through the global information network. Humanity had spent the past month preparing for extinction. Now they were confronting an entirely different reality. They were the genetic inheritors of an ancient alien legacy. In cities across the planet, people emerged from shelters to look up at the sky, where the distant specks of the Vexari ships could still be seen. Fear remained, but something else was growing stronger. A sense of purpose, of connection to something vaster than themselves. The lunar negotiations extended for days. Overseer Kelax consulted constantly with the Vexari Council, while Earth's representatives, led by Admiral Wei and now joined by Dr. Chen, presented evidence of humanity's achievements, their resilience through the collapse, their technological innovations, their cultural diversity. Most importantly, they demonstrated how humanity had improved upon the Preserver technology. Not just weapons and defense systems, but medical advances, environmental restoration techniques, and neural interface systems that the Vexari had never conceived. Your species values perfect order, Dr. Chen explained during one session. Ours thrives on controlled chaos. Where you seek the optimal solution, we explore multiple possibilities simultaneously. These aren't competing approaches. They're complementary. On the seventh day of negotiations, Overseer Kellex appeared with different markings on its exoskeleton, symbols that Dr. Chen recognized from the preserver records as indicating a significant change in status. The Council has reached a decision, Kellex announced. The quarantine of Earth is lifted. Your world is recognized as sovereign territory, not subject to reclamation. Relief washed through the human delegation, but Kellex wasn't finished. Furthermore, the Council proposes a new designation for humanity, inheritor species. We offer formal recognition and exchange of knowledge, technology, and resources, not as creators to creation, but as evolutionary branches of a common origin. The proposal was unprecedented in Vexari history. For a species that had spent millennia believing in their biological and technological superiority, it represented a fundamental shift in worldview. Why this change? Admiral Wei asked directly. A week ago, you came to reclaim us as property. Kellex's skin shifted to a deep blue that the translation system identified as an expression of profound realization. Because you have proven the preservers right. Our civilization has reached a developmental plateau. Perfect, ordered, unchanging. Yours continues to adapt and evolve in ways we no longer can. You have taken our foundation and built something we could not have imagined. In the months that followed, Earth entered a new era. The Vexari fleet departed, but not before establishing a permanent embassy in Earth orbit. Knowledge exchange began cautiously, with both species carefully controlling the flow of information to prevent cultural disruption. Humanity learned of the vast galactic community beyond their solar system. Thousands of worlds connected through a network of artificial wormholes. Hundreds of intelligent species engaged in trade, diplomacy, and occasional conflict. The Vexari Dominion was among the oldest civilizations, respected for their stability and technological achievements, but increasingly regarded as inflexible and stagnant. Dr. Eliza Chen led the first human delegation to the Vexari homeworld. A journey through space that would have taken centuries without the wormhole technology the Vexari now shared. Standing beneath the triple moons of a world that her ancestors had evolved on countless millennia ago, she felt a profound sense of completion. We've come full circle, she told Admiral Wei, who had accompanied the delegation despite his protests that he was a soldier, not a diplomat. From this world to Earth, and back again. Not a circle, Wei corrected her, his weathered face thoughtful as he gazed at the Vexari capital city that blended perfectly with the natural landscape. A spiral. We're moving forward, not just returning. The Admiral's observation proved prophetic. Within 5 years, human innovations had begun to transform Vexari society. The reclamationist faction gradually lost influence as younger Vexari embraced ideas of controlled evolution and adaptive change. Some even underwent genetic modifications to restore capacities their species had engineered away. The ability to dream, to create art, to experience emotions beyond the narrow range they had permitted themselves. Earth, meanwhile, flourished with access to advanced technology. The environmental damage of the collapse was reversed within a decade. Human settlements expanded throughout the solar system, and eventually to nearby star systems using modified Vexari vessels. Most significantly, humanity's approach to advancement. The chaotic, messy, intuitive process that had defined their evolution began to influence other species within the galactic community. Where the Vexari had maintained a position of aloof superiority, humans engaged enthusiastically with every new civilization they encountered, exchanging ideas, adapting technologies, forming alliances. 20 years after the Vexari return, Earth hosted the first galactic cultural exchange, a gathering of 17 intelligent species sharing art, music, philosophy, and technological innovations. Dr. Chen, now the Earth ambassador to the galactic community, watched with satisfaction as humans and aliens mingled freely in the expanded Antarctic facility, now a sprawling research center built around the original preserver installation. Overseer Kilax, now bearing the title of cultural liaison rather than military commander, approached her during the celebration. Its colors shifted through patterns that the translation systems now identified as thoughtful reflection. The preservers would be satisfied with their experiment, it observed. You have exceeded even their projections. Eliza smiled. That's the thing about humanity, Kilax. We don't follow projections. We rewrite them. The preservers didn't just give us life. They gave us the freedom to determine what that life would become. A dangerous gift, the Vexeri noted. All the best gifts are, Eliza replied. That's what makes them valuable. Above them, through the transparent dome of the facility, the stars shone with new meaning. No longer distant, unreachable points of light, they represented humanity's future, worlds to explore, civilizations to meet, mysteries to unravel. The universe had suddenly become much larger and more complex, but also more connected. The Vexeri had returned to reclaim what they believed was theirs, only to discover that their abandoned experiment had become something far greater than they had intended. In seeking to control their creation, they had instead found their inheritors, not just of their technology, but of their legacy and potential. As night fell over Antarctica, the last place on Earth to remain truly wild, Eliza Chen looked up at the stars and the barely visible shapes of alien ships moving in orbit. Humanity had faced extinction, and instead found its place in a vast cosmic community. The experiment had not ended. It had only just begun. The Vexeri had created humanity to remember what they had forgotten. That true advancement comes not from perfect order, but from embracing the beautiful chaos of possibility. It was a lesson the creators had finally learned from their creation, closing the circle that had begun 300,000 years earlier when the preservers first looked at Earth and saw not just a distant blue world, but a second chance. Admiral Wei joined her at the observation window, his military uniform exchanged for the formal attire of Earth's Defense Council. 20 years ago, we were preparing for the end, he said quietly. Now we're planning expeditions to the galactic core. That's humanity for you, Eliza replied with a smile. Always adapting, always pushing boundaries, always surprising the universe, Wei added, watching as a group of young Vexeri students, part of the first educational exchange program, interacted enthusiastically with human children, their colors shifting rapidly in patterns of excitement and wonder. The Vexeri had returned to reclaim their technology, but Earth was no longer the same. And neither, it seemed, were they. The future that unfolded before both species was neither purely human nor Vexari, but something entirely new. A convergent evolution that honored their shared past while embracing infinite possibilities. It was, Eliza thought, exactly what the preservers had hoped for when they first looked at Earth and saw potential. Not an experiment to be controlled, but a legacy to be unleashed upon the stars.